morning. It seems like everyone kind of have, they've in some way said most of the things I'm meant to say. So right there, I was thinking about switching it up a little bit. So rather than, I've got a presentation, but I'm thinking of switching it up a little bit. So I wanted to do some level of interaction. So I'll tell a bit of story as to some of the people we've done some work with. Because I think I have about, how many minutes? 15 minutes? 20, right? So let me start out with this. I worked with the first advertising agency in Nigeria, which is the Low Linters. I don't know if anyone knows Low Linters. They've modified to something else now, to Molen Low and all that. And one of the reasons why I joined them was while I was in school. I made my first million when I was 17. And I was in Yaba College of Technology. And it was quite interesting that, the dynamics of our lives, as students, evolved in such a way that most of my friends were computer science students, where they actually thought that, because they could code, do computing and all of that, they were the brain behind all the things that was happening. Because one of the major challenges most people have is the concept that, you can create, all right? And I still find that happening now. So a lot of people can create, but they don't know how to sell. So loads and loads of people can create, but one of the major challenges is that they do not know how to sell. So you see certain people who put cameras in front of themselves and then they are talking crap. And they have a lot of following, they have a lot of plenty things, and you're wondering how. It goes to show that a lot of people are looking out for certain things, all right? So today the presentation is huge. It's about 20 slides, but I'm not going to do that. I'll just take one or two things from the presentation. So I'm saying all of these stories to say this, because selling is not just a thing that we should do. It's an art. And you've got to be very skilled about selling. Certain people run away from marketing, and then they say, oh, so maybe they get a job today, and then they say you're posted to do marketing. They say, no, I can't sell. But the truth about the matter is that same person is married. You must have sold your vision to someone, all right, for the person to buy into you. So we're selling every single day. You're selling even to your children. You're selling a lifestyle. You're selling a concept. You're selling something, all right? And the moment you accept that aspect of your life, then it becomes easier, all right? So I started out with selling softwares, which is one of the most difficult thing ever, all right? For you to be able to sell software to people, you're selling something that you haven't used, all right? It's just features and say you can fly, you can do this, you can do that. And then he says, are you sure? He says, yes. And then you do all of those things. Recently, we got a gig for some fellow whose story was bought by Disney, and he's in Nigeria. And so he came to us and he says, not to us. So I was leading a certain group in church, and then the dude came and he says, I have this concept and all of that and all of that and all of that. And I'm like, oh, this is really good. However, this is how we should go about it. I think we sold it for about, the story itself, we sold it for about $2 million. All right. And then he started scripting the thing, he has a story. But I said, beyond the story, you've got to put certain things behind what it is that you're doing, which is put a character behind it, put this behind it, put a voice behind it, all right? So that when anybody's looking at it, they're not just reading a story, it comes alive in their imagination. When I was going from that first advertising agency back into my own agency, one of the major challenges is that advertising agencies actually sell eyeballs. But I thought about it, I'm like, nobody wants to buy eyeballs, because if you're putting all your ads everywhere and everybody is just looking at it, and then, so I see the reports, they say 1 million people read it, or 1 million people saw it. But in terms of sales, you're getting less than 10%. It doesn't make any sense. So for software, for instance, and I brought that concept of software back into advertising agency to say, you can't just tell me that 10 million people saw this thing. It does, we help. Because at the end of the day, it's got to be about sales. So in a saturated environment where we have, quite a lot of advertising agencies and all of that, we're able to break through because we brought a different proposition. What's the different proposition? That at the end of any campaign, you're going to sell. So it's got to be that you're tying whatever unique selling point you have to sales. And this is where most people don't want to do the work, because really, selling is the real deal. Nobody ever works in a particular place and you tell them, I can give you guaranteed returns on investment, and then they say you should be going. All right, it's important that we understand the dynamics of sales, because in the end, this is what's going to separate every one of us at the end of the day. If I have someone who comes into my office once a year and guarantees me 12 billion, he can come once a year. He's okay. All right, rather than somebody who says, I'm working hard, I come at 8 and then I close at 9 and then I can't see any results. So it's really about results. So even for voice as well, it's usually going to be about results. So whatever it is that you're doing, which is a different kettle of fish entirely. So somebody designs a logo. I'm using, for instance, the advertising agency. You design a logo. You're saying to them that the color scheme would appeal to your target audience. You're not just saying it's fine. All right, and these are the dynamics. So when we look at what's it called now, the global market for voiceover, it's about $4.4 billion. Right? And then the North America has the highest level in terms of voiceover job being done. Now, a lot of people also complain in the Nigerian market that, I'm not being paid as much as I should be getting paid. The truth about the matter is that you really haven't put a sales pitch on that voice. So somebody says, I get a brief that says, this is what you're supposed to do. All right. You are saying, because the moment you miss out the naira and kobo aspect of whatever it is that you're doing, anybody can just say, come and collect 20,000 and that's it. So the moment you begin to put those things in and you say, this is the target audience in the morning, even if you're a voiceover, what's it called now? An OAP, all right? And you say, I'm on the morning belt. And you've got to invest in certain things that's, analytics that says this number of people listen to me. Why? Because one thing I found out is that most people really don't know what they want until you show them. So if you have the analytics to say this number of people listen to me by this time and this time, go and find out, do a simple survey. Why do you listen to me? It's that simple. Why do you listen to this particular voice? So it's not just, people talk about and bring case studies that the CNN voice, the voice of God just says, this is CNN. It collected this much. A lot of people are also doing things these days where they put their work out, but they don't get royalties. So they do outright sale. And you look at them and you're like, for real? Because no artwork in advertising agency, except the client actually buys it outright. There is a contract of sale. So for you to be able to develop this particular industry, there are certain things that needs to be done. Now, it brings me to one of the things she mentioned, which is the fact that at every point in time, there are certain target audience that you have that as a person, and you can actually begin to scheme, change certain things. So one person can put out different body of work. All right. So it's not just, so sometimes a lot of people say things like, have a baritone voice. And so everybody likes to listen to the baritone voice. But the baritone voice can be rubbing off people wrongly in certain brand work. All right. So it's a baritone voice is good, right? But in that particular brief, it's not necessary. So for instance, you can profile yourself and profile your range to say, for instance, the bulk of the people, which is the people who listen generally to this type of work, are between, so Nigerians, they will say, we have a youth population of about 15 to 35, which is active, probably like 70% of that. Now, if you're appealing to that particular target audience, that's a lot of money. So, and I'm not even talking about the buying power of that target audience. So a child will pressure the mom to do certain things. And that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the fact, which is most people, I'm talking from the brand perspective now. So when you go to a brand, for instance, and they want to make somebody a brand ambassador, we're changing the narrative now because most of them are actually very silly. All right. When I say very silly now, so you want to sign up what's it called now? A brand ambassador. And the dude feels that because I have 1 million Instagram followers, this is what I'm worth, not considering the market size, not considering what your own appeal is. So right now we're doing profiles, and this is a totally different thing that most people don't do. But a brand manager says, I like Wizkid, and because I like Wizkid, he must be on it. And you're trying to find out why Wizkid. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Wizkid, because I know his fans are everywhere, all right? But I'm using that as an example, and then he says, this dude would not be around you when certain things are meant to be done, all right? Because of his busy schedule. Now, you might have a bigger profile or a good profile from somebody else who will deliver much more for your brand than this other person. But when you haven't profiled properly, then you're going to miss the entire concept. So the concept of selling is actually taking all these nuances in cognizance to what it is that you can do. So I put in here, selling is a science. It's a science. It's not, and there are systems that if those systems are put in place, you are guaranteed. I came into the industry, the advertising industry 8 years ago, all right, where people are saying it's extremely saturated and all of those things. But today, all our clients were on retainers with them. They've, in some way, taken out most of those people who are not, who are advertising agencies, but they give them works, per project. The reason is this: there's a value proposition, which is always tied to results. The results being that at the end of the year, at the end of the month, at the end of the campaign, we're going to guarantee you that, can you do that as a voiceover artist? And that's where most people move away from. They shy away from the real work. The real work is not the creation. The real work is to put your name on anything to say, I will deliver for you whatever your KPIs are. And most people don't want to do that. They always shy away from, having to say, I can deliver your KPIs. On that premise, you can negotiate. In the first instance, it might be silly, it might look funny, all right, because most people don't want to hear that. And, there's an adage in Yoruba that says, Togun eniba dani loju, which means that if you are sure of your charm, you hit it on your head, that this thing, I'm very sure about it. And we need more people like that to say that, what's your target audience? What are you trying to achieve? So this dude, for instance, interestingly, because it's a church thing, this dude came, that we got a Disney gig for. He says, in the middle of it, and he says, Wale, I can only give you 20% out of it. All right? And then he wrote a longer piece too, saying, thank you, you are God sent. I'm relocating with my family. Anyways, baraboom, barabim, the dude is gone. But it taught me a lesson, because for us as well, it wasn't something we've done before. That was the first time. I had always believed in this science, but in that particular aspect, I've never done it before. Because I felt that, if you're just imagining things, and like she said, there are certain things you must do. You can't, and the moment you begin to take it seriously, to say, I'm a business, and for me to have a business, there are certain things that must be done. I can't finish this entire thing without telling a story from the scripture. All right? One of the things that most people overlook when it comes to selling, or when it comes to anything that has to do with business, is organization. You must be properly organized. And, Jesus was going to multiply loaves in the scriptures. One of the first things he said before even giving thanks was, he said, make them sit down. And I noticed that also in my business, because that was the first thing I learned, in terms of multiplication. So if you're ever going to scale, a lot of people talk about scale. I want to scale my business from here to here, but they never organize themselves. In fact, people talk about it, but they never organize themselves. So the moment I called an accountant when I started my business and I said, you know what, help do this entire thing in such a way that, when the tax guys comes, I'm going to show them what I've been able to make and there will be no issues. That was the moment I started multiplying. So you might be comfortable with whatever amount you've done, but it's not enough. And until you begin to yearn for those things. So right now, we move all over Africa from Cerebre, all right, into Ethiopia and 33 African countries by just one single client. Is this something I'd ever thought about? Because we started writing copies in Swahili. We started writing copies in French, and it's not Google Translate. Because the way we consume contents in different African countries differs. Now, recently, a new client came, which is global, and because we have all the footprints in Africa, we're able to bring them in on that premise alone. So the dynamics are huge, that when you begin to say this is how much, you're not saying how much, because if there is a science to you forging ahead in the business, there is also a science to the money. So if, for instance, 100 million people, based on they like your content, and they are consuming your content, then you deserve more. But most people don't measure those things. That by reason of what I've done, I'm able to multiply this entire thing. So what's the heart? So it's you, first of all, in the center of it. Number two is the fact that every single one must then get organized. What's the organization? What do I need? I'm not a seller. And that's the first thing. So in my first company, like Steve Jobs, they asked me that, I have to leave the company because they are the ones who were coding. Well, I'm not happy that the company folded up, but the truth about the matter is that in every single thing, in every single entity, you need someone who sells. You might not be the person who sells, you might not be a seller, all right? But you need somebody who sells. So when that chief came, that is in Disney, he said, the Disney guy says, you know what, who packaged this for you? Because over time, they realized, after he had relocated, they realized that, Chief, you are just a creative. And he's quite obstinate they are very passionate. The creative people are very passionate about their works, that even when you give inputs, they can go into depression. Yeah. But it's not about you. It's not about you. It's about the audience, which is one of the major mistakes the entire creative industry makes. So somebody likes, Asha so passionately, and he says Asha must be the one doing the song. When they ask their audience, they want Portable. Because you don't like Portable because you're a Christian, and they're wondering, I don't even understand. This is what the audience wants. And it varies, it's at par. So when you don't understand that dynamics, you really would not sell. So you're saying that my voice is good, yes, we know it's good, but it's not good for this one. So the moment you understand that, you are able to quickly, stay on a direction to say, stay in your lane. In fact, from the first Voiceover Conference, somebody reached out to me who is an agency, and then we created a platform, all right, a web platform. And he says, he's been thinking about it. He also does voiceover for the agency. So he says, why don't people begin to put their voices on that particular platform? And then, you open it up almost like a Uber for voiceover, where people can put their voice and, people can select. And when they select the voice and then they use your voice, they get paid and all of those things. And we created a platform. It was quite a small platform. You log in and all those things and put all those works in there. And he discovered very fast that the dynamics is that a lot of people are he used the word bipolar, which means that, most people really don't like their works being criticized. So they give you a particular brief, and the brief is meant to be like a soft voice and all of that. But because you live in your head and you like your baritone voice, you use that. So it's possible for you to actually have an agency that is just voiceover led alone. And not just animation. Animation is an aspect. The potential is huge. There are loads and loads of teachers who don't have empathy, for children. And you have to subject them to the rigors of taking them to school. Now you can have all these things. Empathy can be in a voice, and the children can feel the warmth. So the dynamics are much. So the future that we have, or we're going into, is going to be void of human contact. What we're doing right now is luxury. That somebody can come and gather this number of people here is luxury. So in the future, you're going to see less and less of these people, all right? And then you're going to have to start feeling the warmth through people's voice and all of those things. So it's important that we understand these dynamics. So you as a person, being in the center, forming relationships. Number 3, integrity. Because in selling, there is a sense of, this is what I'm going to deliver, or this is what I promise, and this is what I'm going to deliver. I have my own story as well of what I ordered versus what I got. All right? But integrity is critical in this same aspect. So some people might need to be managed. And so if you really want, so the dynamics are huge, but there's a lot of work that has to go into it. So first of all, structure. It's not that you don't have structure that, you then can sell. People have, so there's got to be a balance of all of these things. That I have a structure, I have the product. And the product now varies from different things. Can you do audio books? Can you do voiceover? Can you do commercials? Can you do radio? I mean, certain people are having conversations now, all right, about podcast. It's never been our culture before, but a lot of people are talking about it now, that I'd rather replace podcast with radio. Can you see that if now you're planning a strategy, which is what I was telling my people in the office, you're planning a strategy for radio, and you say radio is it. People have moved. And so do you now see that there will be a lot of money in podcast, but it will go to people who are structured? Because they tell us, give us your rate card. You say, just bring. So, and it brings us to pricing. So there are certain things that you've got to be able to price your voice, not per hour. And that's what people do. They say, oh, just put me in the studio per hour, and then I will deliver this per hour. Begin to look at reach. Begin to look at reach. Begin to look at target audience. Begin to create, one of my friends came in from Canada and they brought a child, a baby. And, the baby was doing all sorts, manifesting all sorts. And so we turn on YouTube, and then baby shark do. For a second, I paused, because while she was there, we played it like 15 times. That's in the evening session. So you can imagine how many views that has raked in just on that part. And, some of us are humorous, like we can actually create content that are outside of us. So you've got to start seeing yourself as not just a creator, but now you begin to look for opportunities in those areas. Even if you can't do it, you can get people to do it. And that's what a business is like. So for instance, I cannot do any graphic to save my life. But I have 150 staff who will do that. Right? And I can make money off of that. But I can come up with creative concepts to say, let's begin. So like what I just said to you now, and with the clients abroad, for instance, and it's a different kettle of fish entirely. So globally, the way they consume and the way they do things is different. So you can't just come and say, oh, we want to do this and all of that. They understand CSR differently. They understand. So we're coming up with concept for Qatar 2020. And it's a totally different thing from, the Nigerian markets. They will tell you, just do eyeballs. Just make sure he's on third mainland. And people are working from home. Once he's on third mainland, then you can even go and be drinking beer and do whatever it is you want. But have you succeeded? No. Because you can be on third mainland and most people have problems, their own problems. So they're not even looking. So you haven't been able to reach those people. So selling is an art. And the art of selling has got to be approached in a certain way and in a certain manner. If it's not approached that way, you will have all the talent. You will know that I have the talent, but you'll be in penury. So structure. Because there are people who don't even have half of your talent, but they are selling like crazy. Even with the whatever it is that they do. Because they have how to relate with human beings. And so they can do, there are deals people have brought to me that they are not theirs. And, like, just do it. And then you do it, and then you now hear how much those people collected. You'll be like, what happened to me? So essentially, is the fact that you haven't honed your skills in selling. And this happens every time. I know if you leave me, like I said, look at my slides. I've not even touched anything. But thank you so much. I hope I've been able to help in some way.